Luke here, and as promised, I was going to go over a quick video, just kind of discussing some paces and things like that for long runs and easy runs. It seems like there's a fair amount of confusion on stuff. So what I want to do is just real quick, take a look and clear up some confusion on there for you. So if you go to my site, hansonscoachingservices.com, or if you're in Final Surge, you can do it right through there as well. If you're on our site, you'll go to calculators and click that. And then you'll see training pace calculator. Just click that bad boy. And then what we're going to look at is we're not going to focus on heat and humidity or anything like that, but we're just going to look straight at what times would be. Calculate paces. All right, so let's say we're going to try to run a 4-hour marathon, and we want to know where certain things fit in. There seem to be a lot of confusion with easy runs, especially being an either or type of situation, or something with warm-ups, cool downs, things like that. But also the big one was the long run. So people were asking, well, why is there easy, moderate, and long runs? And if you have some of our older stuff, it said aerobic A, aerobic B, which was the predecessor to the easy to moderate. So we'll go over that right now. So essentially A to B, if you had aerobic A, aerobic B, you were looking at A would be the moderate, which would be the faster end of the spectrum. The B would be the easy end of the spectrum. So you would essentially see the same range. So in this case, you would see, basically 10-minute pace to 11:40 pace as your pace range. So some people were confusing that with either had to be the 10-minute pace or the 11:40 pace, and that's simply not the case. It's more all about a range. Like if you're in that range, you're okay, right? There's no need to worry about if I'm on the fast end of that or the slow end of that for the most part. So just get that out of your head that it's an either or type of situation. It's a whole spectrum of paces. Anything in that range is going to get the job done, right? So that's the main thing I want you to take from that, especially for your regular easy run. So if you go out and it's, an 85-degree day and you're on the slow end of that easy pace range, you're just fine. You're not losing fitness. You're not suddenly overworked. It's just the fact that, it's a warm day and you don't feel very good. So just keep that in mind as you're going along with the training. And, early on, especially like if you're in the beginner program and you're doing pretty low mileage and there's no workouts, you're probably going to be on the faster end of that easy pace range most of the time, simply because that's the only thing you're doing. But as soon as you start workouts, or if it starts getting hot out, all those types of things add up. All of a sudden, easy runs might take a little bit of hit on the pace. That's just fine. That's why there's a range there. So don't worry about if all of a sudden you start doing workouts and your easy paces suffer. That's actually a good thing. It means you're not trying to crank the pace too much on those easy runs. And that's what I would rather see as a coach. Is I'd rather see your workouts be really good and your easy runs be in the range and not necessarily on the fast end of that range all the time. But if you're feeling like crap, I want you to slow down. I don't want you to get caught up in that trap of always being on the fast end of that range. So just looking at my notes here, I'm looking at also want to talk about warm-ups, cool-downs, and the jog recoveries for essentially the speed work. I think is the biggest one people take a hit on. So, but really for warm-ups, what you're looking at, what I want you to be, is you have to consider what you're trying to accomplish with the run, right? So we're trying to, quote unquote, warm up to run faster, right? So being on the very end, slow end of that easy pace range for the entire warm up doesn't necessarily make sense, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to maybe start off on the easy, like in the middle part of the easy range, and then gradually pick it up for the warm up, right? So maybe by the end of the warm up, you're closer to the faster end of that moderate range than you are the slower end of the easy range. So, because we're trying to prep the body to run faster. Cool down is really going to be the opposite. So we're essentially, instead of transitioning from 0 to fast, now we're trying to go from fast to not running again. So we're going to kind of take it the other way around. We're already been running hard. So now we're just trying to get that body transition from working really hard, kind of the shock of that, to not doing anything. So the cool downs, you can definitely be on the slower end of the easy range. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you're running and you're getting your cool down in, that's all I care about. Honestly, I know some people like to run the cool downs fairly quick, and I don't, that's up to them. But, for me, it's all about just getting the body prepped to cool down and taking it from a high level of stress down to a low level of stress, and you're just transitioning that way. So that's what I would say for cool downs. Jog recovery, general rule here is just as long as you're running, you're fine. So if you're brand new to doing speed work and it's kind of kicking your butt a little bit, don't be afraid if those jog recoveries are slow. They're on the slower end of the spectrum. As you get more fit or more advanced runners, they'll just naturally be a little bit quicker on those jog recoveries, unless they're going too fast on their workouts or they're trying to go to another level that's way above from where they're at. Then you might see them. They might not be able to handle a faster jog recovery. So again, it's all about a range, and it's all about where you're at as far as the training goes. So as a beginning runner, you might find that jog recovery is going to be slower than somebody who's more advanced. But again, as long as you're in that range, even for those, I don't think you really necessarily want to be in that moderate range. You'd really want to stick more in that easy range. But sometimes, I have workouts where, we kind of emphasize on a quicker jog recovery because we're trying to do more for the body. But in our basic sense of things, don't worry about being fast on the easy runs. As long as you're not walking, I'm okay with that. And you're right where you need to be as far as the workout goes. So that's for those. The big one I know people were worried about was the long run. There was some confusion on the long run. And I realized in the book, we don't actually say paces. I do have a blog post on my site. It's called Marathon Long Run Part 2. First part talks about why it's the 16 miles and all that good stuff we've talked to no end on. And the second part here is actually more about paces and where you're at as a runner. So essentially, as a beginner, what we're doing is all we're really trying to do is get you to be able to cover the ground, right? So we want you to get through the training and get through and be able to do the training itself first, right? So we're not worried about pace on this. So in this instance, you could probably throw that third row of that long run pace out the window. You might strictly be in that easy range on your long runs. That's perfectly fine. You're still getting what we want you to get out of it. We're just looking at being able to run, essentially 16 miles without stopping, because then we have to consider what we're doing before and after that. Before we're doing a tempo run. After that, we're going to bounce back and do speed or strength. So the long run can be slower because it's still getting our benefit of general endurance in and getting that aerobic fitness that way. As you become more advanced, the long runs are going to get a little bit easier. So maybe we might need a little bit more of a stimulus. That's when we can really look at this long run and moderate pace range. So then folks maybe perfect example would be somebody who did a beginner program and it was a big jump for them in training, and all they did was they just wanted to get through the long runs. So they were really more like a minute and a half, 2 minutes slower than their marathon pace. Now they come back and they're like, I don't want to do the advanced plan, and the beginner plan might be a little too easy for me. I need a little more stimulus. So that stimulus can come from that long run being a little bit quicker at this point. You're a little more experienced. Now we can focus on getting those long runs a little bit quicker, because in general, I don't like real slow long runs for a fit person, right? Because all we're teaching the body to do is how to run a long ways slow. For most people, though, in the beginner standpoint, they don't care about how fast they're running. They just want to be able to run the distance, right? So that's why I throw the pace out the window for the beginners. The more advanced you get, now we can start focusing more on pace. So, that kind of intermediate level type runner, a recreational type runner who's starting to do who's done workouts and has maybe run a marathon before. Now we can say, okay, why don't you take that long run? Maybe you focus more on moderate pace. So maybe you're more like a minute to, maybe you focus on a minute and a half slower than marathon pace. It's a great way to add a new stimulus without changing the schedule. And then finally, the more advanced person, this might be a person in the advanced marathon plan who's got a lot of experience, has run several marathons, has trained hard before. Their stimulus might come from making that long run, 30 seconds to a minute slower than marathon pace. And that's great. That's just another step in the, that's just everybody's on a stepping stone, and that's where they would be at on that stepping stone. And then in that blog post, we also talk about other variations a runner can make, but that's beyond what we're talking about today. So you can do that. I think the big thing for this is don't do this all the time, especially for the intermediate and advanced person. Like your early long runs, they should probably just be on the slower end of things. As you get more fit, then you can start increasing the pace a little bit. So don't think that that's got to be an everyday thing or you're not going to get the fitness. That should be really something reserved for a couple of the later long runs in the segment. Other than that, sometimes you'll see, so like basically every other week. So basically, let's say, this weekend you have a 14 miler, next week you have a 10 miler on Sunday. That 10 miler might be one you can get after a little bit, but if you're having a tough time recovering from workouts, then I would just run it at the easy pace. So the shorter ones, you might actually be able to get after a little bit longer. And I guess starting with that, we should say, maybe your 14 miler, you focus on just covering the distance, right? But then the next week, if you have like a 10 or 12 miler that's shorter and you're feeling okay with training, that might be one where you can get after the pace a little bit and you can dip down in that closer to that 30 seconds to a minute slower than the marathon pace, simply because you're not running as far. But I'd only do that if you're feeling good and you're not feeling like you're not recovering from workouts. If you're not recovering from workouts, take that as a time to really recover, run that at an easy pace, really focus on recovery, because if you do that, then you'll have basically tempo on Thursday, but then you'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days where you can really recover, and then Tuesday pick up with a speed or a strength workout. So there's different ways to look at it. Hopefully that helps you out some, and ideally it takes out some of the confusion in the long runs. I know that there's kind of some working parts to that. So just take this as it is. At the end of the day, as long as you're in that 2-minute range, you're just fine. It doesn't have to be something where everything has to be on the faster end of things. And that's really what I want you to really kind of get out of this, is the fact that, yes, there is an upper speed limit, but you don't necessarily have to aim for that all the time, especially if you're not feeling well or if you're feeling like you're not really recovering from training. Those are perfect runs to slow down, and it will allow you to make the workouts a better stimulus for yourself. So hopefully that all makes sense. If you're not, keep asking questions. It's great. It obviously gives me something to help you out with. So I hope you have a great week, and I will see you later.